thankfully, we have a caller coming in now who wants to talk to us about street epistemology. So this is Janet. You are on the line. Janet, what's up?
Hey. Hi, Dan. Hi, Doug.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're great. Just hanging out here.
I'm a 7.
So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I wanted to ask. I saw a video by one of your fellow street epistemologists, so shout out to Tyrone. Well,
yes.
Who said that Ty said that he was trying out if SE could be used on opinions and not just beliefs. So something that is just an opinion. And I wanted to see if we could explore that a little bit with one of my very controversial Facebook statuses this week was, just because you served in the military doesn't make you a hero. It went over fairly well. I lost some friends. And I wanted to see if you think that that's something that can be done, because I have, deeply held beliefs. I think it was easier to convince me that God wasn't real than it is to convince me of things that I have that are just strongly held opinions.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and answer first, Doug, and then I want to hear what you say. But so I did see this Facebook status that you posted.
Yeah.
This was interesting, and I've actually talked to Tyrone about this, about whether or not we can do SE on opinions. And my opinion on this is yes, as long as remember that, again, we're not necessarily coming to any conclusions about things, right? So whether or not I agree or disagree with your statement is completely irrelevant.
Right.
What we're focused on is the criteria by which you make your opinion. So
okay, right. So you're still talking about the how you arrived at the opinion,
yes,
not necessarily the content of the opinion.
So if you're saying, well, I don't think that these people are heroes, the first thing I would ask you is, okay, well, what makes a hero? Establishing definitions. Because
and someone did ask me that, and my answer was somebody who is completely selfless and does something above and beyond the usual, the normal. So just simply, going into the military and serving, in my opinion, doesn't make him a hero.
So
maybe throwing himself between a grenade and his troops, that would make him a hero.
Yeah. Okay. So see, there are people who, right there, after explaining what you mean by what you just said, who would say, "Oh yeah, I agree with you." But if
there are people who said no.
Yeah, well, but if they didn't get that, if they have a different definition going on in their heads, then there's going to be that breakdown in communication, and suddenly you're not talking about the same things at all. So it's always, I think, it's pedantic sometimes, but you really do have to establish definitions. They are really important, and I don't even mean in like an official debate capacity. Just a colloquial definition of whatever that person means by what they say, I think, is important. But Doug, what do you think about this idea of doing street epistemology on opinions? Have you done this before? Are you familiar with this at all?
Yeah, I think you can do it. I think it's basically a matter of confidence levels. So if someone has a 100% or let's say 99% confidence level on their opinion, you can basically do street epistemology to either lower or raise the confidence of that opinion. So I see no problem with doing SE on opinions.
Yeah, I agree. The confidence level thing is also really important because most people, when they say that something is true, they just mean that they believe it's true. Like, it's kind of a shorthand. And, like, we can measure that confidence and belief generally with most things. Some people aren't used to thinking in that way, so it can kind of be a bit difficult to kind of start that off in that context. But I think that's all there is to it. I think any kind of statement, any claim you make about reality is a belief that you hold, and so it should be able to be examined, whether it's an opinion or a fact-based claim, because some people think that their opinions are facts and vice versa. So,
yeah. See, like the example I often give when it comes to knowledge and belief and opinion is, like, I know this pen will fall when I let go, but I believe that there's going to be a recession in the United States within the next couple of years. And that's also my opinion, right? It's my opinion, and it can be based on certain statistics and facts that there will be a recession in a couple of years in the United States. But it's still, Would I be very confident about that? No, like I could say I'm maybe 51% confident that will happen, but I wouldn't say I know it. And I would say I really don't see a difference between that being a belief and an opinion.
You see a difference though between something like that, like you're anticipating a recession based off of data that we've seen, trends that we've seen, versus something like the status that I put up of military people aren't necessarily heroes.
But because
there's really no data that would lead me to that conclusion.
I disagree with you, Janet, because you are working under a definition of heroes, and you are taking in data, i.e. people that you see who are in the military, and you're assessing whether or not they fit that criteria. And I would say that's an equation that you're putting data into,
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like what percentage?
So now I'm going to say I have evidence to back up my... No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, as long as you make clear what you're saying, right?
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, there were still some people who were like just, saying that just the entry into the position alone is, and I get what you're saying, that's just a contradicting opinion, and based off of their definition of a hero. So I hear you, and I thought it was an interesting question that he posed of whether or not you could question things besides beliefs.
Is it Janet?
Yes.
Janet, I just watched the movie. Is it Sicario last night? And one of the actors made the comment that for some people who enter the military, they enter because they want a legal means to kill. Mm-hmm. Now, if that is true, that is one. I think he gave 4 reasons why people enter the military. One is because their parents or their parents were involved in the military and they want to be a patriot and so forth. But one of the reasons was that there's some, let's say, psychopaths out there who want legal means to kill other human beings. Would we call those heroes if that was their reason to enter the military?
Right. And there are other reasons. That's another reason why I hold the opinion is I know some people are given the option of jail or service. At least they've been given that option in the past when they've committed a crime. They can either, go into the armed services or they could go to jail. That was one of the common. And then, of course, they had the Michael Moore documentary that talked about, people in low-income areas having no other option to get out of their way of life except for the military, because college wasn't an option. So they had to enter the military to have any hopes of a better future. So they're really doing it for, and I'm not saying it's a bad reason, but it's a self-serving reason. Mm-hmm. And of course I don't blame them for their choice, but it's not it's not selfless.
Yeah, so we do have trouble with our language when we kind of do these equivalencies. Like, again, this is kind of exactly what we were talking about earlier. This idea that I'm a good person, therefore I'm a Christian.
Right. These
two concepts are not necessarily linked. And that's not to say that Christians aren't good people. I know I was in Christian community for a long time. I know great people who are a part of that. But it is a problem in our language.
Very smart ones too, because it doesn't mean they're not smart either.
Yeah, it is a problem in our language when we necessarily say that they are one and the same kind of concept. Right. So. Yeah, it's all a semantics kind of language thing when you get down to it. And people take pride in these identity labels as well. Like being a Christian was like hard work in some sense. It was something you worked towards. And like us as atheists, we don't work towards that anymore. We just kind of gave up because it was too hard for us to kind of put the work in, you know what I mean?
Right. A lot of people do say that, oh, you just, became an atheist because it's easier. What?
And the same way people would say about people who enter the military, like it does take work to get in there and to go through basic training. So, my dad was in the military.
I'm not saying that I don't want to extend them courtesy. Like I believe that it's, everyone deserves courtesy. there's a difference, in my opinion, between courtesy and respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, respect, in my opinion, is something you earn after you've shown that you deserve it, whereas I'll extend everyone courtesy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, I'm with you on that, is that they've definitely earned, especially if they serve, like someone asked me, you know, are you saying that they don't deserve, like, their college education and their discounts and stuff? And it's like, absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If they went in and they did it, then they've earned those things. They've earned them. And I'm not trying to take away anything from anyone. I'm also not trying to say they're bad people. Mm-hmm. Not at all. I'm just, you know, my one singular comment is it doesn't make them a hero. That's it.
Yeah.
No judgment beyond that.
Yeah, I get you. You know, like, I'm sure if I talked to my dad right now and he was right here, he wouldn't call himself a hero.
Right. Yeah, my father wouldn't either.
Yeah, that's never been a thing for him. And there are people who take that and who proudly served, and I give full credit to, and they are heroes for sure. And if that's a label that they want to describe themselves with, for the most part, I'm not going to, unless you give me reason otherwise, I don't have a problem with it. But
yeah, I don't have a problem with people labeling someone a hero if they. I don't have a problem with anybody else's opinion of it. It was just, you know, it's my opinion. You know, it's like if somebody else wants to consider every police officer and every military person a hero, that's, you know, they have that right. That's theirs. I just disagree.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Doug? Yeah.
Well, I agree with what you guys have been saying, but I'm curious. Janet, did you say you're an atheist?
I am.
Can I ask?
I've been out atheist for 4 years.
Can I put you on the hot seat for a bit?
Ooh.
Sure.
Ooh.
Ask me anything. Go.
What would it take for you to become a Christian?
Okay, my initial response is a joke, but okay, because that's me. My initial response was going to be a lobotomy, but no, it would take something. God would have to appear to me in a way that is empirical, testable, certifiable.
How confident are you right now that Christianity is true? 0%?
No, 1.
1%.
I'm not going to say 0 because I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't claim knowledge.
Okay, now I'm not asking you what would it take to believe Christianity is true, but what would it take for you to go from 1% where you're at now to, let's say, 10%? I know these numbers are very strict, but
okay, I think I can answer that. I would be slightly more convinced if someone regrew a limb.
I like that answer. I would be a lot more convinced, not just slightly.
I don't think I would go above 10 because I'd be like, okay, there's something. You know, this guy's, you know, part frog or something. I mean, I would probably still be skeptical. So I would say, yeah, a limb, I might go up to 10.
And what if you're minding your own business in your home and Jesus appeared to you and talked to you?
Then I would seek mental health care. And I'm not saying that jokingly. I would seek mental health care.
Okay, and let's say you did that, you sought mental health care, but every time you came home, Jesus appeared to you and said, look, you're sane, you're fine. In fact, you know, take your hand, touch me, you can feel me, I can have dinner with you. In fact, I don't know if you're married, but your husband or your kids or whatever, your friends, they come over and they see this Jesus guy too, like.
Then I would think that he was just a normal person. But if you're saying that he's, you know, a God, then I would ask him to prove that he's, you know, a God.
What would you ask him to do?
Something that is supernatural.
Like a limb?
I mean, he can, like I'd go ahead and take him over to the Children's Hospital and he can heal all those kids with cancer. That would be helpful.
And what if he said that he has a plan that you'll not understand? He doesn't want to heal all those kids of cancer, but he's still real.
Then I tell him to get out of my house, because a God that won't help those that are less fortunate is not worthy of my time. So if he could prove it and he refuses to prove it because of some sadistic plan, he can kiss off.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Now, what if this Jesus guy does say, okay, let's go to the children's hospital, and he heals everyone in that children's hospital, but just that hospital, not the other ones?
If he went to a children's hospital and performed his miracles and healed all the children in that, I would believe he was real, and I'd ask him. I would believe that he had some ability. I don't know if I would necessarily believe that he was God, but I would believe that he would have some ability, and then I would ask him to continue to do that for everyone else.
Okay, I love those answers. Now, this one's a little tougher, though.
All right.
What would it take for
this
you
is
to
fun,
believe?
By the way, I'm not usually asked any questions, so.
It's so interesting because Janet, I know you watch the SE content and stuff.
I do.
So
I love all you guys. I watch all your videos.
Yeah. So I'm glad. I was thinking about this, but Doug's probably better to ask you right now. Anyway, go ahead, Doug.
What would it take for you to believe in, let's say, more of a deistic type God? We're not talking about Christianity now. We're just talking about a God who, let's say, created the universe and just let the clock run.
Okay, so like a hands-off, created it but doesn't interact.
Right.
Well, then I'd ask him, why is he bothering me? Like, I mean, if you're talking about he's like revealed himself to me somehow, like how would I know he's there?
Well, let's say, I don't know if this is possible, but let's say we knew with 100% certainty that our universe and any universe is finite, that they all had a beginning and never went eternal past in any way, whatever that means. Would you become more open to the spiritual realm, a supernatural realm, a deity of some sort?
I have no reason to believe that an entity like that exists, and unless something was presented to me to try to convince me, I would withhold belief.
Okay. What if... Oh, this is my last one.
Okay.
What if all agnostics and all atheists, let's say starting next year, got cancer, but anyone who called himself a theist never, ever got cancer? Would that change your mind at all?
Okay, so everyone got cancer who doesn't believe in God.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Correct.
Then I'm back to my other answer. It may convince me that there's something to it, but I sure as hell wouldn't worship that. So they can kiss off again.
Well, let me clarify something here. He's just talking about the existence of a God. You don't have to worship him.
Well, I'm saying, that's true. I mean, we didn't establish that there was a relationship between the God and them not having cancer, so I assumed that there's a relationship. But, I mean, if everyone who's not a believer of some kind, if everyone who's not a believer has it, then that's what they're going to say. And if it's a deist, then it's not like God is going to send you a message. So, I mean, you would have to reasonably conclude that there's some relationship there based on the evidence.
Good answers.
I mean, if every single one, if 100% of believers, first of all, I don't believe that believers are, true believers a lot of times. I think a lot of them are playing Pascal's wager. So it would be interesting to see how many people who are Christian would end up with cancer.
Interesting. I think I would answer similarly, but here's where I would add to that. Because the assumption is that the supernatural explanation is the best explanation, but I still don't think that that's necessarily the case, because believing in something is still a natural phenomenon. And we've demonstrated...
If it happens, then it's no longer supernatural.
Well, we've demonstrated that people who hold certain beliefs do hold different psychological states. It can affect their well-being, obviously their levels of happiness. And I wouldn't be surprised if disease or some form of that could be a correlate as well, whether it's a placebo effect or not. So I would still maybe default to a natural explanation and see whether or not the actual act of belief.
We are on the same page there. I would exhaust every other possible explanation before I would ever turn to believing in God. I mean, it would be like it would have to be no other possible way it could ever happen, and I would still probably be like, yeah, but.
And I've talked to Christians about this, and someone has asked me, well, what is your reason for defaulting to natural explanations? And the reason is because I know that there are at least some natural explanations. Right, those at least I know to be true to exist. I don't know that the supernatural explanations exist, and so
and did you know I grew up in a house that they thought was haunted? My family thought was haunted.
Really?
And oh my gosh, yeah, I talked about it on Talk Heathen once, and my sisters and mother were so convinced that this house was haunted that they had it, blessed and de-demonized, I guess. But it was pretty wild, for several years. And I kept trying to talk sense into them. And at this time, by the way, I was still within the faith, so, but I was like, just because we don't know what's causing the lights to come off and on, or the, faucet to come off and on, or the creaky, stairs in the middle of the night when nobody's walking around, like, just because we don't know what those are doesn't mean it's a ghost.
Hey, Janet, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So how many years were you a Christian?
I was, I started going to church when I was born, but, going to church and actually taking part when I was about 7. And I stopped going to church around 34, so it was a long time.
Hey, that's pretty close to me. Why did you stop going to church at age 34?
I was actually a women's pastor in the church that we made I made it with my brother and my brother's friend, lifelong friend, and I was doing the women's ministry for 2 years, and also I would about once a week I would give a sermon to the entire congregation, and I just never really believed, and I just felt like I was, I couldn't live the lie any longer.
What was the stumbling block for you specifically that you thought you couldn't believe it?
Well, here's the weird thing about me. I never actually could make myself believe in God, like from ever. Like I tried and I prayed and I tried to fit in and I just couldn't do it. But I went to a fire and brimstone, Southern Baptist church for the majority of my childhood. Although I didn't think God was real, I totally believed in Satan and hell because it was scared into me. So my not believing in God was really hard on me because I couldn't make myself believe it, but I believed in hell and I believed in Satan. So I'm sitting there going, if I can't make myself believe in God, I'm not going to heaven, and I'm being, tempted by Satan. It sounds ridiculous now, but at the time I was legitimately scared. Like for years. And even after I finally admitted to myself, which it took me years to admit within my own head because they taught us, God could read your mind, so it took me years within my own mind to say, I don't believe. And when I finally said it, I looked around the room, I just stopped the thought and I just looked around the room and was like, okay, where's the lightning coming, and then I finally eventually said, okay, it's okay to admit this to myself.
That's so strange that you believed in hell and Satan, but not God. That doesn't compute to me.
Trust me, it doesn't make much sense to me either. But it was, I think it was the way that they taught, church. I'm not sure if you've ever been to too many Southern Baptist churches, but all the ones that I went to, and there were quite a few in my life, they didn't focus on the good parts. They didn't focus on, when heaven's going to be a big old family reunion and, you're going to have a good old time on the, streets of gold. It was everything you do is a sin and you are going to go to hell. I mean, you could not breathe without it being a sin. I mean, every sermon was about how we were not good enough.
Mm. Do you think...
I think the reason why I believe that was because that's all you heard.
Do you think that if you were... I bet you there's some Christians listening right now. Do you think that if you were raised in a proper church, one that focused on the love of Jesus instead of the fear of hell, that you would still be a Christian today?
No, because my lack of belief wasn't due to being mistreated in the church. I actually really enjoyed church, even though I didn't believe in God. I wasn't not a believer because I was in a bad church. I wasn't a believer because I couldn't believe. My mind just wouldn't let me, and I believe that belief is an off and on switch. It's either on or it's off. There's no in between. And I just never was able to flip my belief switch on for God, ever. Just nothing made it seem true.
Mm. Yeah, and I tell people that too, that it wasn't necessarily the mistreatment that I saw that, it changed my mind. But it did, I think in my case, it did motivate me a bit more to kind of speak out.
It motivates me now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I'm so heavily involved with the ACA. I, try to make sure that new atheists especially feel supported, that they have, resources, and that they know that someone has been there, because it's very isolating when you, admit to your very religious family that you don't believe. I had 6 brothers and sisters. One passed away, so I had 5 at the time when I came out, and I have one who still talks to me. So the other ones just disowned me as soon as I said that I didn't believe in God.
Wow.
And the one who still talks to you...
But, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The one who still talks to you, is he a Christian?
She and yes, she is extremely Pentecostal, which is the religion that we went to after we left Southern Baptist. Talk about jumping out of the frying pan into the fire into the frying pan, or whatever that thing is. But yes, she is Pentecostal because that was the second half of my childhood. We left the Baptist church and started going Pentecostal.
And so, does your sister try to save you?
At this point, she's agreed to disagree on the topic of religion, and she just basically pretty much refuses to discuss it. But there are times when it's very difficult for our relationship because she has a son who is paranoid schizophrenic. And I tell her that he should not be in a Pentecostal church because it's bad for his illness, because they teach the demons are real, and he thinks he can hear them when it's really just his mental illness that is the problem. And they, do things like try to do like healing sessions and stuff on him, and it just breaks my heart because I feel like he could be so much further along if they just stopped, that kind of interaction with him. So while we've agreed to disagree, there are times when I just can't sit idly by and not say something.
And your brothers, all your brothers have disowned you?
I had 3 sisters and 3 brothers, and my one brother passed away, and the other 2, they don't talk to me. Because
you're an atheist now.
Correct, and they actually found out. My mother had Alzheimer's, and she kind of let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, because she said that, she said something, when she wasn't exactly to herself, to my brother. And so when my mother was passing away, I wasn't even allowed to go see her.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like a really hard, situation when you come out of religion and you don't have any community.
Well, you have been a great member of the ACA community. From what I've seen, you've been super, super active.
Thank you, Dan.
And you have been so great in promoting my show. And I cannot thank you enough for doing that. It's been really, really helpful to help get viewers like the viewers that are on right now, and getting our calls on and stuff. And I really appreciate that, Janet. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. And, I love your show. I love what you do. And I'll always be there to support you. Just give me a shout if you need anything. And it was very nice speaking with you, Doug. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Janet. Maybe we'll meet again.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Janet. Janet, she is super, super awesome. Love talking to her. We met for the first time last year at the American Atheist Conference. And I've noticed since then, it's been really, really fun. And like I said, she's been helping promoting the show and stuff. So it's been really good. So we might have another call on here in just a second. But first, I want to get a quick announcement out there. So I know I've been talking about this show coming on live, like officially, for quite a while now. Like I said, we've been doing test streams like this to make sure that we know what we're doing, getting graphics together, getting a format down, and I officially have a date for you now. That doesn't mean it's not subject to change, like all things in life, but it's what we're shooting for, and it's going to be October 14th. And if you notice, it's actually a Sunday. Why is it a Sunday? Because we are going to try to show this show right after Atheist Experience on Sunday. So if you're tuning into the Atheist Experience and you keep on the stream for just a little bit after the show, we're going to get my beautiful face on there. We'll probably get Drew McCoy, a.k.a. Genetically Modified Skeptic, as my first co-host, and we will get the ball rolling. After that, I have a special guest lined up. If you watched my podcast with Anthony Magnabosco and Reed Nicewonder yesterday, you saw our guest, Josh, who was an ex-white nationalist who now goes to prisons teaching people critical thinking based on some street epistemology methods, among other things. And he's going to be our second guest host on the show. So again, these are all tentative plans, but that's what we're looking at right now. So if you've ever wanted to ask questions to what being a white nationalist is like and what those kind of beliefs are, or if you know someone who is currently a white nationalist and wants to talk to somebody who isn't anymore, be sure to tune in. It's going to be a really interesting time.
Yeah, I watched that. I really enjoyed that episode, even though Reed Nicewonder was on it.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited. He's a super cool guy, and I think he's really excited to be on too. So it'll be just like this, where they'll be streaming, and we'll go on as normal. But I think for our first show, Drew might be with me here, actually in the studio. We're gonna see what that looks like. But again, this is all coming up pretty soon, so look forward to that. I am stalling for time because we do have one more caller here who does want to talk to us. They're still on the handset with our producer, Mark, in the back. But while we're doing that, Doug, what's going on with you, man? What's in the future for your channel? Anything special coming up?
Well, it's really tough for me because I've critiqued a lot of the top tier apologists or pastors, some of their sermons and so forth. And sometimes I wonder, even though these are the top guys, is this still low-hanging fruit? I've looked at maybe critiquing more Roman Catholic stuff, but is the fruit even any higher there? Should I talk to more liberal Christians? But it seems like their beliefs are flip-flopping in the air. I actually had one liberal Christian on my show, and it was a mess. If you watch it, it's just like you can't. At least the conservative Christians know what they believe. Mm. But it seems like the liberal Christians, it's like, no, I throw that verse out. I keep this verse in, and so it's tough for me to know if my channel should move towards just strictly doing interviews with pastors and apologists, or doing more critiques. Or if I should follow the advice of my cousin Leon and just say, forget about it, because in 30, 40 years, Christianity will be probably down to 30%, and all the old people will be dead by that point, and the millennials, they're not believing. And maybe I should be talking about crystals instead, because it seems like when it comes to millennials, there's more people who believe in crystals and that's new age type stuff than Christianity. I don't know.
I am a millennial and I did believe. So there is
But you're from Texas.
That's true. That is a big part of it. That's an interesting conversation.